Each new day presents a new slate to write new things on, such as an innovative idea, new plans or decisions. But whatever you write, be sure it is based on relevant and adequate information. This is what you get on Early Exchange. Good morning, welcome to the show. I am Blessing AG. Ayo Jimmy is here with me. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning, Blessing. Good morning from a nation of 220 million people plus, where the press is never idle and never tired, never bored, and you will not be bored. The agenda for renewed hope continues as the president rolls out policy statements and documents to ensure that all of us smile. But how much can we smile? What is the length of our smile? How broad can it be? Today we'll discuss all that, even as we roll out and talk about palliative measures that this regime has rolled out. Today is going to be a great day for you and for all of us together. My name is Ayo Jimmy. Of course, this is Souk News and we make news first on the agenda. And so Olaoluwa Awe is standing by in the studio to bring us news updates from around the world. Please stay.
Yes, thank you very much, Ayo Jimmy. Good morning, Blessing AJ, and good morning to you. Welcome to the morning news update on Early Exchange. I am Olaoluwa Awe. As usual, we start with developments in Nigeria. Stay tuned. Now, the federal government has clarified that tuition fees for students in Unity colleges nationwide remain free and that only the boarding and textbook fees were reviewed. The government said it introduced a uniform fee for new students in Junior Secondary School 1 and Senior Secondary School 1 to address concerns about parents paying uniform fees into separate accounts and to ensure uniformity among students. The official circular titled Approved Fee for Federal Unity Colleges for New Students was released on the 25th of May 2023 before President Bola Ahmed assumed office. It shows the parents will now have to pay a total of 100,000 naira instead of the previous 45,000 naira. And the same circular addressed the principals of federal government colleges for JSS 1 and 2, Senior Secondary School 1 and 2. There was an increment of 15,000 naira in boarding fees, 3,000 naira in textbooks, and an additional 2,000 naira for notebooks. Upon closer examination, it was observed that the new school fees included an additional 49,500 naira for JSS 1 students, covering uniform, boarding, medical utilities, textbook, notebooks, and prospectus fees. The Office of the Director, Senior Secondary Education Department of the Federal Ministry of Education explained that boarding and other fees for students of Unity colleges were increased to cover for the low overheads in the federal government college system. By increasing the fees, the government aims to ensure that the schools can provide the necessary facilities, resources, and services to maintain a conducive learning environment for the students. But this news has generated criticisms among social media users in Nigeria. And the Ministry of Health in Lagos State has reacted to a leaked memo going viral online about the victims of the October 2020 NSAS protest, clarifying that the details of the letter were being misconstrued. The state government asserted that the victims mentioned in the letter were from incidents of violence that occurred after the NSAS protest and not the controversial Lekki Tollgate shooting. A leaked memo surfaced revealing that the Lagos state government approved over 61 million naira for the mass burial of some 103 individuals identified as victims of the 2020 NSAS protest. The memo, dated July 19, 2023, outlines the steps for processing the funds after the governor's approval. The memo also indicates that a ministerial tenders board meeting reviewed the recommendations of the procurement planning committee and no objections were raised to awarding the mass burial contract to a funeral service provider. The document further instructs that relevant taxes and deductions are to be remitted by the approved company. According to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health, the bodies were picked up by the Lagos State Environmental Health Unit, SEMO, in areas like Fagba, Ketu, Ikorodu, Orile, Ajegunle, Abulegba, Ikeja, Ojota, Ekoro, Ogba, Isolo, Aja, and there was also a jailbreak at the Ikoyi prison. The Lagos State government reiterated no mass killing of protesters around the NSAS protest. Similarly, the University of Lagos has announced a new fee structure for students. According to the new structure, while a student without lab and studio use are to pay 100,750 naira, those with lab use will pay 140,250 naira, and the College of Medicine students will be required to pay 190,250 naira per session. The university's Vice Chancellor, Professor Bola Shadil had, in a meeting with representatives of the 3 non-academic staff unions on July 20th, disclosed the proposed fees. To provide some flexibility, Professor Ogunsola at the meeting offered the option for staff to pay in installments. However, they must complete their payments 1 month before final exams. And still in Lagos, ahead of the demolition that is scheduled to be carried out by the Lagos State government at the Adeniji Adele House on the estate, the Lagos State government says it will provide resettlement for those affected. This was according to the spokesperson of the Lagos State Urban Renewal Agency, LARUSA, Mrs. Adiola Olagoke. According to the agency's general manager, Ajibike Shomari, LARUSA had in June identified about 26 weak and distressed buildings within the Adeniji Adele Housing Estate, phases 1 to 4, which it noted were recommended for demolition to prevent loss of lives and property. Some of the affected buildings included blocks 103 and 106 in phase 2, blocks 56, 57, 58, 61, and 66 in phase 3. Meanwhile, Mrs. Olagoki said talks are still ongoing on the provision of alternative buildings to those who will be affected by the intended demolition. The Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps (NSCDC) has apprehended 12 individuals suspected of vandalizing railway sleepers and seized 2 trucks carrying stolen railway sleepers. During 3 separate operations within 2 weeks, the NSCDC Special Intelligence Squad made these arrests at various locations, including Kafanchalkoi Road in Kaduna State and Angwa Kuje Village in Nasarawa State. Intelligence report says in one operation, the vandals were caught loading stolen railway sleepers in a bush in Nasarawa. The squad also intercepted a long open trailer filled with over 500 pieces of vandalized railway sleepers, allegedly owned by the Nigerian Railway Corporation (NRC), concealed under sacks of groundnut dust. Additionally, 3 individuals transporting vandalized railway sleepers hidden with rice chaff in a bus were arrested along the Kefi-Abuja Expressway. In another operation, 4 more suspected vandals were caught loading railway sleepers into an illegal warehouse in Kaduna. The NSCDC disclosed that among the retrieved items was a forged copy of the NRC scrap delivering paper. The arrested suspects and exhibits will be further investigated to aid in future arrests. The agency urged citizens to provide helpful information to assist in arresting vandals across the nation and to curb the rate of critical infrastructure vandalism. It also warned individuals involved in criminal activities of stealing national assets to cease their actions, as they will face consequences for such illegal activities. From Nigeria to Ghana, the Ghanaian Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Benadapa, has resigned her appointment after it was reported that some staff members found and stole starches of money, both in local and foreign currencies, from her home. Newspaper reports claimed $1 million, 300,000 euros, and millions of cedis were allegedly stolen from her home, sparking outrage and calls for the minister's resignation. The minister, in a resignation letter, said the figures reported did not represent what she and her husband reported to the police, and that she understands perfectly the weight of such allegations around someone in her position. Although the presidency received a resignation letter and praised her work without making mention of the allegation, the president vowed to continue to crack down on corruption. Still in Africa, the government of Gambia is more than likely to seek a legal action against an Indian drug maker made in pharmaceutical alongside a local distributor over toxic cough syrup believed to have been responsible for the death of over 70 children. Majority of the children who were under 5 years died of acute kidney injury last year in Gambia. According to an investigation about the death conducted by Gambia's task force, the deaths were a direct result of contaminated cough and cold syrup imported from India. The World Health Organization (WHO) also confirmed that the cough syrup contained lethal toxic ethylene glycol and ethylene glycol, commonly used in car brake fluid and other products unfit for human consumption. The executive director and deputy director of the country's Medicine Control Agency, MCA, were fired, and the case was reported to the police after the task force discovered that the medicine was not registered as required. The new pharmaceutical has denied wrongdoing, and the Indian government claimed the result of the test carried out on the drug showed no contamination. But the Gambian Justice Minister said the country has already hired the service of U.S. law firm to consider the possibility of a legal action against India. Algeria has taken significant steps to explore new economic opportunities by applying to join BRICS, a prominent association of emerging economies. In addition to the membership application, Algeria has also expressed interest in becoming a shareholder member of the BRICS Bank with a substantial investment of $1.5 billion. This move comes following a visit by Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune to China. BRICS is an influential group comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, collectively representing over 40% of the world's population and approximately 26% of the global economy. Notably, more than 40 other countries, including Argentina, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Cuba, Democratic Republic of Congo, Comoros, Gabon, and Kazakhstan, have shown keen interest in joining the organization, according to a South African top diplomat. During President Tebboune's visit to China, there were discussions which resulted in China's commitment to investing $36 billion in Algeria across various economic sectors. These investments are expected to span fields like new technology, manufacturing, the knowledge economy, transportation, and agriculture. The G20 nations held a meeting in Barbaling, India, to address the crucial issue of phasing down fossil fuels and promoting sustainability. They collectively account for over 3/4 of carbon emissions and gross domestic products, GDPs, which gives them a unique opportunity to make a significant impact in the fight against climate change. While the countries reached an agreement on 22 out of 29 paragraphs, there were disagreements on critical issues such as the proposed tripling of renewable energy capacities by 2030. This resulted in the release of a summary statement instead of a joint communique at the end of the 4-day meeting. The discussions also included sections urging developed countries to work together in mobilizing $100 billion per year for climate action in developing economies from 2020 to 2025. While the G20 struggled to reach a comprehensive agreement on phasing down fossil fuels, the urgency to address climate change intensifies with extreme weather events around the world, serving as stark reminders of the challenges at hand. And in response to US President Joe Biden's growing concerns surrounding the potential misuse of artificial intelligence AI during an event held at the White House, prominent artificial intelligence companies including OpenAI, Alphabet, and Meta platforms that participated in the meeting have made commitments to uphold the safety of AI technology. One of the measures agreed upon was the implementation of watermarking in AI-generated content. This move aims to facilitate the detection of deepfake images or misleading content that might depict non-existent violence, propagate scams, or manipulate images of public figures negatively. The companies also pledged to thoroughly test their AI systems before release and share information on risk reduction in cybersecurity practices. Furthermore, they promised to prioritize the protection of users' privacy as AI continues to advance. They aim to address issues of bias and ensure that AI is not used to discriminate against vulnerable members of society. The White House views this commitment as a significant step forward in the Biden administration's efforts to regulate AI technology, as the industry continues to experience rapid growth in investment and popularity with consumers. The president also emphasized the importance of remaining vigilant and clear-eyed about the potential dangers that emerging technologies could pose to the United States democracy.
Now to the UK. UK's Foreign Secretary James Cleverly has postponed his planned trip to Beijing this month. The delay comes in the wake of mysterious disappearance of a top Chinese diplomat, Foreign Minister Kung Jian, which is having ripple effects on geopolitics.
Foreign Minister Gang's near-month-long absence from public view has raised concerns and uncertainty, leading to a postponement in Foreign Secretary Cleverly's expected late July visit to Beijing. While Bloomberg reported that the two countries are reviewing alternative dates, the situation surrounding the missing Chinese diplomat has added complexities to diplomatic engagements, and various countries are closely monitoring the developments. The city of Padua in northern Italy has initiated a process of removing the names of non-biological gay mothers from their children's birth certificate. This action comes as a result of new legislation passed by the current traditional Family First government led by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Consequently, only the biological parents of a child can now be listed on the birth certificate. This legal measure has significant implications for same-sex parents, as surrogacy is prohibited and gay marriage remains unlegalized in Italy. Due to the lack of recognition for same-sex relationships in the country's law, the non-biological parents must go through a special legal process to adopt their own child. Moreover, the new measure also impacts men in same-sex relationships, as they are no longer allowed to register the birth of their child with both fathers' names. Instead, they must choose only one of the fathers to be legally recognized as the child's parent. This birth certificate development pertained to 33 children of Italian women who underwent artificial insemination abroad and consequently registered their children under the previous center-left government of Sergio Giordani in 2017. The prosecutor's office in Padua has confirmed that 27 mothers have already been removed from their respective birth certificates. And that's the morning news update for today. Thank you for watching. I am Olaoluwa Awe. To follow Souk News on social media and stay tuned to Early Exchange for more updates. Good morning once again.
Welcome back. Thank you, Olaoluwa, for the update in the world of news. Okay, it's a very busy day for us as a country. I said earlier in my introduction that this is a country where the press is never idle, never tired, and never bored, and the people are never bored. One key issue that is on the minds of Nigeria, that is top on the lips of Nigerians when we talk about this removal of fuel subsidy and the palliative measures put in place by the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It was in the news today that because of this subsidy paying, Labour is talking tough. Yes. And ASU protesters condemn relief plans. That's according to local newspaper Punch. Now, just 2 days ago, the National Economic Council came out with the reviewed palliative measures, part of which the cost of living infrastructure is there, cost of living allowance, I beg your pardon, is there, and a whole lot of measures that are put in place to ensure that the pains of Nigerians are assuaged. But it seems that people are not having anything like that. They are complaining that they are not. These so-called measures are still not enough to assuage the pains of Nigerians.
Yeah, the Nigerian Labour Congress, like you mentioned, talking tough and planning protests against the removal of fuel subsidy, even though the federal government has plans for palliative measures as well as the cost of living allowance for civil servants. But I think that Labour does not agree with the plans because Labour feels that they are not enough to actually take care of the pains of the removal of subsidy. And that is why there is planned protest, not to mention that there have been increase of other things. For instance, increase of fees, increase of price of products and services across the nation. So these are the issues that are making Labour to talk tough.
Okay. Now, we are not alone in the studio, as we have with us Idahosa or Samanze, and let's not forget that he is the Director of Policy and Research, Africa Development Studies Center. Idahosa, welcome, Lord.
Ayo, good morning. Good morning, Blessing. Good morning, Nigeria.
It's a never-ending conversation. This is top on the minds, top on the lips of Nigerians.
Oh, yes.
The president is saying he has come with the renewed hope agenda.
Oh, yes.
But feelers in town are not speaking to this renewed hope. People are feeling they are less hopeful in his policy thrust. What's your take on this? Because we seem to be back to that table.
Well, the only thing that is constant in life is change.
Yes.
And most of the time, change are not always things that are pleasant. And once change are happening, a lot of people definitely will resist. And that's why any strategic leader, while planning change, must also plan change management to address those issues of resistance that come from the people you're trying to help, so to speak. Now, it is too really early for people to really cry. And why we are looking at what government is doing, on the one hand, we must also look at the long-term implications of these decisions that are being taken. And I think what Nigerians should really be concerned about is the measure of integrity that is being put in place to channel the savings that are going to come or that is coming from this subsidy debacle to productive use, so that in the long run, all of us will become beneficiaries.
But Labour, according to Labour, the subsidy was unintelligently removed. What could be the reason for that? Because the government has removed subsidy, but it is making plans for palliative measures. So why then say it was unintelligently removed?
Yeah, I think the point Labour has made over the years is that subsidy is not sustainable. But like they say, it's like the game, the egg and the chick, which come first, whether it's the egg or the chick. So this has been the real debate around the removal of subsidy. Labour is saying, yes, remove subsidy. But if you want to remove subsidy, there are some basic things you need to put in place, which will help address the dire consequence of the removal on the common man on the streets. Now, what are these issues? The petrol is still imported because local refineries are not working. Because if you produce your PMS at home, of course you will reduce substantial amount of the pump price. Like I said, logistics costs on current pricing of PMS is about 17 naira. So which means if you take 17 naira away from 560 that mega stations are selling, you don't know what that gives you. It reduces further down. Now, this is what people are asking for. The basic thing that you need to put on the ground are not there yet. So why remove subsidy? But the question Labour need to really answer in this direction is to see, do we really have the resource to put this basic infrastructure in place before removing subsidy? We know that the government has borrowed up to its throat. And we are choking to death. A situation where you are servicing your debt with about 96% of your revenue. It's unacceptable. This is the right time to remove subsidy. And what all of us need to do is just cooperate with government and then begin to drum into the ear of government so that what is not being accrued as a result of this removal should be properly channeled into things that will benefit the people. Health, education, defense, and security.
I guess it's because this particular policy goes directly to the nerve of people. And people are complaining in town. A family that was able to spend 7,000 naira fueling the car per week now spends as much as 40,000 naira. Up till now, there has not been an upward review in salaries of fixed earners. Yes, those who are into businesses can jack up the prices of their wares in response to what they meet in the market, but those with fixed incomes are not able to do that. And this is why even the academic is joining. Like we have Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Unilag chapter is championing this because of a number of factors. Some of which we will discuss in the next segment.
I think strikes are not progressive, and they are not real tools that government people should be resorting to, because it's even itself a distortion on the economic activities and further devaluing the man on the street that they want to protect. You see, what the real issues are is that let us see what the outcome is. For the first time, FAC is sharing over 3 trillion. After a very long time between states and the local governments and the federation. And I think what we should be concerned about, or the workers should be concerned about, is that this money that is now being made, that is not getting into the pocket of few individuals, but they should go into social interventions that will eventually affect the majority of Nigerians.
That's where transparency comes in. So once that happens, I believe that the nerves of a lot of Nigerians will become calm. Even as states are beginning to do their own palliative measures or propose palliative measures to ensure that the pain of subsidy removal is reduced. Now let's get on to talk about education. So according to the Punch newspaper, it is believed that with 2,000 naira, one can get the West African Senior School Certificate Examination questions online an hour before the commencement of the exam, which speaks to malpractice. And so supervisors, invigilators selling wire questions online, some of them were arrested and on trial. So the issue of examination malpractice, it has taken different dimensions. At one point, we saw the spring up of what they call miracle centers, where students go to enroll in some centers with the hope that they'll get assisted during the examination to come out in flying colors. Now, I don't know how much of that has been reduced, but it has come up to the point where you can now have access to the examination questions online an hour at least before the examination. But how could that be possible if there is no complicity in some area?
Well, the WAEC boss made a particular statement here. He said WAEC has barely about 1,500 staff members, and they are conducting exams for over 21,000 secondary schools across West Africa. How do you suggest, I mean in Nigeria, how do you suggest that a staff strength of 1,500 will cover 21,000 plus secondary school? Now they resort to using ad hoc staff that they call supervisors. Now, he said one thing also, that they only release the papers to them 1 hour before exam, obviously for them to be able to convey it down to the centers. Now, within that 1 hour window is when this havoc is wreaked. People leak the results, I mean the papers online before they even get to do it. And students can purchase with as low as 2,000, which in itself is a crime against humanity. But the good thing is that they have tracking systems according to the WAEC boss, by which they are, tracking those who are culpable, and they are bringing them to book. Some of them are being investigated and tried in the court of law. But I think it's sad. Idahausa, your take on this?
Well, I think, again, it speaks to our value system as a people, that we are very corrupt, and the majority of us are looking for means, for survival, they call it, and therefore resorting to criminal activities like this particular one we talk about. You see, a lot of things happen. And this is because of the competitiveness of the environment. Again, you go back, is a failure of the value systems in the family. But fundamentally speaking, is the fact that why are people really wanting to buy certificates? Because Nigerian has put so much premium on paper qualification. And so people are struggling, and even those who have no capacity for academic rigor want to be in school because they see that the only way to survive is through going to the university or higher institution of learning. But I think this thing we need to correct to let people understand that the value of the certificate itself is not an end in itself, but is a means to an end. And there are other alternatives to this same end, which is you investing and developing your God-given ability and skills, following your passion, things that you love doing, and do them very well, and it will put food on your table. I don't think somebody like Davido, for example, is using certificates to eat. And I think many Nigerian young people should take him, for example, as a model. False studied law, but he's playing a lot of music. It's no certificate he's using. So there are a lot of people who we have seen, yes, they have been to school, but what's actually putting food on the table is not the certificate they earn from school. So if we can actually de-emphasize the importance of certificates, some of all these things that we talk about will naturally come to
I think it has
cessation.
to be a systematic thing, because until we have a system that respects skills and not paper qualification, that will not really happen. Because some persons, even if you ask them, don't want to go the line of having academic qualifications, but because they know that without that, there's no respect for whatever skill you have. At the end of the day, they will still say, oh, he didn't go to school or she didn't go to school. So that's why they want to do everything to ensure that they have that paper qualification. But I think one way to go about even having the paper qualification is for WAEC to adopt the JAMB method, where you have online examinations. So until the time you're to write the exam, you don't have access to the exam. So there's no need for anybody carrying question papers to examination halls, which may actually increase the cost of enrollment for WAEC examinations. But I think that is one way to curb the incidence of examinations.
But sorry, Ayo, just to look at the CBT too, it's also a very fundamental issue. I remember some years ago, about 3 years ago now, and Professor Oloyede was asked on a national television, what does he have to say to the young chap that scored the best in JAMB? He said he has nothing to say because he's not even sure whether it's his result. So even the sharp practices, they're everywhere. The real issue for me, which is fundamental, is not the mechanism, it's the value system in our environment. You see, the way it was done in the West was value and dignity of labor. That it does not really matter what you do, but what matters is that at least you are working and you are joining God in his creative efforts. And that was what pioneered the Industrial Revolution. So people were happy to be cleaners. People were happy to be maids. They are working. And because they are contributing, they are actually not serving their masters. They are actually serving God. And they are joining God in God's creative enterprise. And this was encouraged. So you don't look down on any kind of profession. The real reason why a lot of people are struggling to earn a certificate is because if you see a mechanic, you look down on them. If somebody says a farmer here, you look down on the person. So people don't want to carry that toga, of an inferior person. So they also want to be a graduate.
Which in itself is a matter of perception. It's a matter of perception. And it is because, like Blessing said earlier, we still live in a climate that values certification as against skill set.
Yeah.
No matter how skilled you are, if you don't have a certificate that is recognized by the law, and you will still be employed as a technician, no matter how good. Be the best electrician, the best mechanical engineer. If you don't have that certificate that you are a qualified engineer as qualified by our school system, you will still be employed as a technician, and somebody with probably less skill endowment than you will still come and be your boss. That is for those who are policy makers. But for us as individuals, there is one question we must ask ourselves when you're in school. What if this certificate fails? What do I do? Because we have seen certified broke people. People are certified and they are broke with all, because we are turning out thousands and thousands of graduates into a labor market that is belabored. I call it a belabored labor market, because there is no space to, to absorb those who are turning out. So if you ask yourself, what if this certificate fails? Then maybe you begin to take instructions and look within yourself and bring out strength in a new direction.
And
yes,
require
not
skill.
all of us can become a Davido. That calls for a particular skill set. But there are other things you can do apart from singing that can give you access to wealth, access to fame, and so on and so forth.
And if you must go the way of acquiring educational qualification, they used to say that it's not for you to just go through school. School has to go through you.
Exactly.
So for your own benefit, so you can even make good use of the number of years that you spent in school and defend the certificate, because that's what will matter at the end of the day. If you have to go that route, then you must ensure that you study the books and school goes through you as much as you want to go through school. Let's turn now to made-in-Nigeria smartphones. Report has it that made-in-Nigeria smartphones fumble as monthly importation hits 50 billion naira. So despite ranking among countries in the world with huge mobile connections, with 320 million SIMs since the telecoms revolution began about 2 decades ago in Nigeria, but most of smartphones in Nigeria have been imported from other countries. That speaks to, about us not producing enough of what we use. One would have thought that being smartphone, we have a lot of smartphone repairers, and that perhaps it shouldn't be so complex to produce here or even assemble here, but we still have a large chunk of it being imported here.
While I agree with you that it is easy to think it should be easier to produce here, there are so many factors that come into place before you can produce smartphones successfully and profitably. Let's not forget that those who are producing are not into charity. And when you talk about we importing billions of naira worth of smartphones annually, despite the fact that we have huge mobile penetration, it still boils down to one key thing. What do we value? We still believe in the exotic over the local. Homegrown technology doesn't appeal to us as much as the so-called foreign technology, which is itself a matter of perception. I wish we would just, maybe your one sentence from you, because we have to wrap up now this segment. What do you say to this? One liner.
Well, I think we should also find a way to help that industry. You see, a lot of people will find things cheaper to produce outside than doing them locally, and that actually increases price. So, but what we're talking about here is competitiveness. If we can be competitive, a lot of these things will change.
And if we can also ensure standards, then of course it gives us an edge to compete in the smartphones industry. So let's take a break and begin to look at other issues. Stay tuned, it's LA Exchange.
Welcome back to Early Exchange on Souk News, and that was a break there. When I look at how complex it is to rule a country as diverse in interests as Nigeria, only one phrase comes to mind: no jokes. Yes, no jokes at all. Because, yes, we all agree that subsidy has to be removed, and removed it is. There is no rolling back. The government is trying everything possible to introduce palliative measures to assuage the pains of the populace, but it seems that is not enough, at least not in the interim. Now, just 2 days ago, the National Economic Council rolled out the full palliative measure. That was after the initial 8,000 naira proposed 8,000 naira disbursement to poor homes in the country. Now, part of that is what we're discussing today. We're looking at the NEC resolutions in detail, with number 1, which is the support proposed, the proposed support in the context of cost of living allowance for civil servants. That is the front burner topic for today, and we have somebody around. Blessing, when you're out there, you seem to believe, yes, you can do it. But when you're there and you see the enormity of the challenge there, what comes to mind?
You know the saying, uneasy lies the head or wears the crown.
What does the crown that holds the spectre?
Yes, so it's not very easy, but you know, it's a decision made. So I'm very sure that President Bola Ahmed knew very much that it's not going to be easy running the affairs of Nigeria, and that's why you find that the plans are coming in quick successions. They proposed one plan, they saw the reactions of Nigerians, and so they're reviewing the proposed distribution of 8,000 naira as a palliative measure to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal. But the NEC has made some resolution, which you mentioned one of them, which is proposed cost of living allowance for civil servants. Yes, I think that would work to an extent, but the thing is, not everyone is a civil servant. But for civil servants, it's going to work because I think the allowance is going to be shared based on levels. So maybe some percentage of your salary is going to be given to you as allowance to cover for the increased cost of goods and services that have come into being as a result of the fuel subsidy removal. And there are other plans, which is the endorsement of the deployment of CNG vehicles for public transportation. Now, CNG is compressed natural gas. About the CNG thing, you know, that initiative was actually proposed by the former administration, talking about the administration of former President Buhari. But what was a setback to it was the cost of conversion, because not all vehicles in Nigeria are CNG vehicles. So if you have a vehicle that was made to run using petrol, you have to convert to the one using CNG. So the cost of conversion as at that time was put at 240,000 naira. So who would bear the cost? How many persons could afford converting their vehicles to CNG? That was the setback. But with this plan, I do hope all of the factors are being considered alongside the cost of living allowance for civil servants.
Okay, thank you, Blessing. There are questions to be asked and there are answers to be given, not to us, but to Nigerians out there. And we are not the ones that will do the answering of the questions. We will do the asking of the questions. One person who is standing by via Zoom to do the answering of the questions is Mr. Emmanuel Oluwafemi, who is getting set. He's getting set for that. But before then, let's look at the fact that states are plugging into this so-called palliative measures. Just yesterday, Ogun State government rolled out its own measures as adapted from what the NEC came up with. And one major item, which is number 7 on the list, is that it has ordered ministries, departments, and agencies to work out modalities of ensuring that 20% of their staff strengths are off duty daily to ease the burden of, you know, the cost of transportation, which is key. Meaning, we are finally getting to that point where you do probably one day on and one day off.
Yeah, but my worry concerning this is I hope it doesn't affect productivity at the end of the day, where you have workers having one day off. Maybe at the end of the day, you have like 3 working days, because if you alternate it and you have 5 working days, some persons may just have to work 3 days a week, and maybe some others 2 days. But depending on how they work around that, my worry, like I said, is the impact on productivity. I do hope there are measures to ensure remote work so that there is no gap in trying to ensure that workers spend less in trying to do their job?
Okay, I think it's a matter of the system you put in place. The world of work is changing per second.
Yes,
what used
it is.
to work before is no longer working. So the people are working remotely. There are,
In the private sector,
companies
but I hope that is effectively done in the
yes,
public system.
There are companies that are run entirely from home.
Yes.
And they work. It's about system. Okay, I have it that Mr. Emmanuel Olorunfemi is standing by. He is a research manager at Africa Development Studies Center, Abuja. That is ADSC. Let's just confirm first and foremost that he can hear us. Mr. Emmanuel, good morning from us here. Let's hear your voice.
Good morning.
I can't hear your voice. Can you unmute? Good morning. Mr. Emmanuel, can you hear me? I can't hear you, Mr. Emmanuel. You can't hear me. He's shaking his head. You can't hear me. Say something, Mr. Emmanuel.
I think he can hear
Yes,
us.
I can hear you now.
Okay, good to know. Okay, we're looking at the NEC, the National Economic Council proposals, talking about the resolutions of the NEC, I beg your pardon, and we're looking at the first part of it, which is a three-legged part. Number one is that there is now the proposed cost of living allowance for civil servants, where the National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission have proposed an allowance that amounts to 702 billion naira to be paid to civil servants, and states are beginning to effect that, because in Ogun State, for instance, we have about 10,000 naira for each public servant on a monthly basis as part of the cost of living allowance. You would assume that this should calm frail nerves in the country, but as it is, people are saying it is still not enough. Let's start with that opener. What is your take on this? This allowance for cost of living, how much of allowance does it allow you to cushion, to adjust to the discomfort that is brought to you by the removal of fuel subsidy? Is this enough, or is just a drop of saliva on dry land?
All right. Thank you very much for having me here today. Though I didn't get your question clearly.
My question is this. Hello, sir. Let me explain myself.
The allowance.
This cost of living allowance that has been earmarked by the NEC
to spend about 200 billion to 250 billion monthly to subsidize their petroleum costs for coming to work. But if we look at it that way, it's not going to be something that government should do, because in the month of June, government was able to save 400 billion naira from subsidy removal. And if 250 is being used to give allowance for consumption again, that shows that more than 50% of what they've saved have been expended on consumption. And in the long run, the pain that everyone is bearing amounts to nothing. So the best way to go about it is to invest in infrastructure, which is a component of what NEC has already been laid out. Thank you.
So what then would you propose if the cost of living allowance is not something you think is healthy for the Nigerian economy in the long run? Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear me? Emmanuel, can you hear me?
No, I can't.
Okay, if you can hear me now, just say hello. Okay, we still have some audio challenge. All right, now as good as the cost of living allowance sounds, but according to Emmanuel, he doesn't see that as a path to go, given that over time we end up spending what we're getting as savings from the removal of fuel subsidy. I quite agree with that in another aspect, because yes, giving money as allowance to civil servants will increase more disposable income, which will stimulate economic growth. But I fear that in turn would also lead to increased inflation. Because once traders get to hear that, oh, some allowances are being given to civil servants, it's almost equal to saying there's been an increase in the salary of civil servants. And you know what follows when that happens?
I think I want to agree with you on that. But let's not forget the fact that it is just a temporary thing. It is called palliative for a particular reason. It won't continue forever. The government, no government can continue to dole out 10,000 naira or what have you on a monthly basis to the civil servants. There is a fixed amount for this cost of living allowance, which is 702 billion naira. Now, if you even divide that by our population, it has a lifespan of its own. Okay, so I just want to believe that it's just government's way of saying, okay, we understand the pains you are going through, have this for starters while we work out. When you talk about infrastructural development, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. And there's a difference between overnight and overtime. Mr. Emmanuel, I need you to confirm that you can hear us now so we can continue with the line of questions. My colleague has a question for you. Good morning, Mr. Emmanuel, once again. Can you hear us now? Hello, Mr. Emmanuel. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good that you can hear it. So, if giving out cost of living allowance is not the way to go, what would you then propose in the interim? Okay, I have to say that again because obviously Mario didn't hear me. So if the cost of living allowance is not something that you quite think is going to be effective, what should be the way to go as the government proposes palliative measures to cushion the effect of subsidy removal?
Can you hear us?
Please, can you come again?
You mentioned that the cost of living allowance is going to eat into the savings accrued from the removal of subsidy removal. So if that is not the way to go about this, what then would you propose the government do? Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, but can you hear me?
I'm still having this hearing problem.
Oh, okay. So we understand that in some parts of the country, particularly in Benin City, there are pockets of protest over the removal of subsidy.
Oh.
That means that tension is building. So government has to do something to further douse tension. And that's why it is the NEC has proposed that the government should give out cost of living allowance. But you say it's more like you say getting money off subsidy, but you're spending a lot of it as palliative. So I'm asking, what should be the solution to this? Not just to calm nerves, but to cushion the effects.
All right. The palliative measure should be mainly infrastructural, and it should be focused on production, not on consumption. One of the issues we have the subsidy over the years was that it has been for consumption and it's not for production. And not just consumption within our local economy, but we are for foreign economies, our neighboring countries. Therefore, if there's any palliative that government is working on, that NEC has started with, the one that built infrastructure in a way that CNG vehicles are being incorporated into our public transportation system, allowance should be prioritized too, but it should not be more than 30% of whatever we are doing. So if we are using subsidy, though there's nothing like subsidy saving henceforth, the only time we can refer to subsidy saving is between June 1st and 30th, because what accrued to government within that time, there is still budgetary operation that allow for payment of subsidy. So 400 billion that was saved is the only one that could be referred to our subsidy saving. From July, the narrative changes, which is everything government earns is within the fiscal policy of the government to account for it. So it's going to be a budgetary allocation from whether from supplementary budget or from the current 2023 budget. Now, having said that, the best way are the measure to cushion the effect of subsidy removal in infrastructure. Because if we have immediate wins, they will come back with multiple effects, negative ones, that will still result in what we have or what we are leaving behind. So it's better to bear the brunt, both the government, the public, and everyone, businesses involved, that at the end of the day, within 6 to 1 year, we should be able to say that subsidy removal has balanced our economy and is actually restructuring it. Not the way that we have what we call palliative, because in Nigeria, most of the time we understand are basically stomach infrastructure. But if we do what they call stomach infrastructure, which is to say you give somebody something to eat and is satisfied for that moment, in the next minute or the next 1 hour, is looking for something to support himself again. In the long run, or even in the short run, it does not matter whether he satisfies himself just an hour ago or is wanting something in the next 5 hours. So that is not sustainable. The best measure in this is better for us to face it one and for all, that infrastructure in our transport system, in agriculture, in service sector. And one of the shortcomings from my own basic analysis of the NEP resolution is that service sector contributes almost double of what agricultural sector is contributing to our economy. That is to say, about 43% of our GDP earning comes from service sector. Now, there is no any prioritized project for service sector in the NEP resolution. Though we might be saying agriculture is the mainstay of our economy, it employs more people. But the driver of the economy too, as far as Nigerian economy has been in the last 4 years, is service. The money accrued to the economy, to the federal government and the other states, is from services, not agriculture. Though agriculture is wide, but the benefit of agriculture to the revenue generation in Nigeria is still low because of it's still a primary source of revenue. So that is how I think government can approach policy.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. We'll come back to you. But we have Director, Research and Policy, African Development Studies Center, Idausa Osamanze, with us on this discussion. Now, sir, Emmanuel just mentioned that all attention should not be at the agricultural sector. He wants governments to also look at service sector. So in what way would this looking at the service sector come in?
Well, I think the whole concept of subsidy is actually to help industries, specific industry, where government feels that there's a need to leverage in terms of its competitiveness and support those industry to grow. That's one way, of course, subsidy became really popular in economic terms. So what that means is that you are looking at where will your competitiveness actually be? What will the nation gain in the long run? You see, the real challenge, we're talking about the protest, the gathering momentum for people to go to street. It's not about going to street. The real issue here is how do we build a bigger cake that will be enough for all of us to eat and be satisfied? It's the question that we face as a nation. Because there's no amount of intervention government can actually do that can help businesses to survive. But I think we should look at critical sectors that will make us competitive in the long run, and then be able to distribute these proceeds proportionally, so that every sector can be carried along in the long run to survive. Because it's not just about agric, it's much more than agric.
Okay, let's just talk briefly on the second part of Resolution 1, which is deployment of CNG vehicles, commercial vehicles for public transportation. Before these vehicles ever come, of course, we have our own modes of transportation. And every new change is always resisted against in the first place.
Yeah.
The players in that particular industry, those who are anchoring that particular sector, the transport sector, what do we do to ensure that we meet with minimum resistance? Because you are introducing change that many of them may not have the financial muscle to adopt or to latch on to. Of course, they will resist.
Well, I think it's just providing alternatives so people can make choice. And that's what economics is all about, is choice making. And you prioritize and see what is beneficial to you, what will give you an edge or an advantage. If CNG becomes cheaper for them to run, it's just an economic decision to take. They call it opportunity cost in elementary economics. It's the decision you take to do a thing against another. So even the man who is using petrol car should be able to weigh it. If I continue with petrol, what more money could I make? If I invest a little more to change my carburetor to the one that can use a CNG, what value will it add? So it's an economic decision.
But couldn't that be because CNG, though being a cleaner source of energy, doesn't quite have the demand that petrol has for now? When you have more vehicles converting to the use of CNG, will that also increase the price of CNG? Because remember, when more persons were using kerosene as fuel, the price of cooking gas was cheap. But now you have more persons, the price of cooking gas has soared.
Yeah, it's true, of course. That's what I'm saying. It's just economics. It's simple economics. The law of demand and supply. If demand exceeds supply, then you have to see spiral price increase. Because eventually, there'll be competition in the market. People want to buy and you don't have. So those who are selling want to push price up. So it's simple. But I think it's to create a balance between the two. Let both run concurrently. There are people who will still prefer petrol car. They will use petrol car. Some people will still prefer the CNG. They will use CNG. But ultimately, and I think that's what the country should actually be working toward, is to see how we can invest. Number one, refine some of all these things locally, that we are not import dependent, but rather we create those value here, and then people have enough and they will be able to buy. And ultimately, really, and which is what works elsewhere, is that there should be massive investment in transport infrastructure. If we have good train services running, we have good mass rapid bus service working, all these arguments about price increase or not will naturally go down. People are also adopting what they call mobility as a service, which enable people to actually contract some companies and use their vehicle on used by paid by use basis. Okay. Yes, so these are options that are all available in the marketplace.
We really can't talk enough about it. We will continue the conversation some other time about the next resolution, but not on cost of living allowance. The show is still early exchange on Soup News. We're going on a very short break now, and when we're back, we will discuss one more thing that is on the front burner today. Mr. Emmanuel Robin, let me say thank you to you for sparing the time with us, even though network glitches did not allow us to enjoy the ball what you brought. But then we do, we're able to pick one or two things. Let's go on a short break and we'll be back. Stay. Welcome back to Early Exchange on Soup News. Thank you for staying tuned. In today's Nigeria, when schooling in a private school has become very expensive, the consolation for the masses has been unity schools, which are federal government schools established across all the states of the federation to promote unity. They admit everybody that has the qualification from every part of the country without discrimination. Then it was affordable. But just a few days ago, it was revealed that there is an upward review in the amount of money paid by unity schools from 45,000 naira to 100,000 naira. Initially, it was said to be school fees increase, but then the government said no, we did not increase, we did not even charge for school fees. Tuition is still free in unity schools. Only the cost of boarding, textbooks and others have increased. But to the paying parents, it is still an uncomfortable increase from 45,000 naira to 100,000 naira. These and many more are the sides we're looking at on this particular issue, the review of the cost of schooling in federal government schools, otherwise called unity schools. Blessing.
Yeah, I find it funny when it is said that unity schools or federal government schools are tuition free, but the administrative charges are quite expensive. So just imagine if there was tuition, how high it would be. So if you are providing free tuition, I think that it should also cover the cost of other administrative charges, which are way too high than what you would even ask that people pay as tuition. Now, according to UNESCO, 15 to 20% of public expenditure should be on education, but in Nigeria we've never had up to that. In fact, from 2016 till date, Nigeria has never had up to 10% of its budget on education. In fact, as of last year, it had just 5.4%. The highest it has had from 2016 till date as budget for education is 8.4%, which falls below UNESCO's recommendation.
Honestly speaking, we know that our schools are underfunded, whether at the primary level or the tertiary level or the secondary level, they are underfunded. And we do know that, yes, it has been argued that government alone cannot fund the schools. There is upward review of the cost of schooling anywhere in the world. And one of the arguments for this upward review is the fact that we have improved, it enables improved facilities in our secondary schools. Okay, we're not alone here to discuss it, as we have one person who is also a scholar, who is a teacher, who is standing by to join us in this discussion. His name is Dr. Olusheye Ajuwon. He is an economics teacher, UNILAG, and fellow Institute of Nigeria-China Development Studies, UNILAG. Dr. Olusheye Ajuwon, if you can hear us, please confirm to me. Good morning to you. Can you unmute yourself, please? I can't hear you. Oh, I can't hear you there. Let's sort that out while we discuss in-house here. Idausa, I wouldn't know if you attended unity schools back then, or you're one of the privileged few that attended private schools.
Well, I have never attended private school all my life. And also, I think from secondary up to tertiary now, my children too had not attended any private school. We have patronized the public school system in Nigeria.
Oh, okay. Now, the idea is, the government says tuition is still free.
Yes.
But parents will still have to pay 100,000 naira.
In
a country where, apologies, in a country where the minimum wage is 30,000 naira. How free is tuition if school fees is 100,000?
Yeah, but you see, the whole thing still boils down to, if you have not been there, you will not know. My two boys attended King's College, and I know what it is to send a child to a unity school outside what you think government has done. You see, if this increment will make life better for the children and they are fed adequately, it reduces how much parents spend on pocket money for these same children in this school, I think it will be a good bargain. Speaking from my own personal experience.
Okay.
Yeah. it will be a good bargain.
But does the increase in the charges translate to improvement in facilities?
Yeah, that's where the conversation actually had to lie. You see, because in some of all these things, let's be frank with ourselves, is a collusion between even some so-called parents in these same schools and probably school authorities that's actually defrauding the people, not in terms of whether government subvention is actually coming to the school. I think that these conversations that we need to discuss. I remember when my son was entering into King's College, for example, we paid development levy of 81,000 back then in 2015 to build an uncompleted. I put my pen to paper to calculate because it was supposed to be Parent Teachers Association, not even the school system. And you will go and see what they did with the money. So these collusions are the issues that are really affecting the public secondary schools, that we need to be sure that a lot of the administrators, and there are no collusion to really defraud the system.
Okay. I have it that Dr. Oluseyi Ajuwon can hear us clearly now. Dr. Ajuwon, could you please let me hear your voice and confirm if you can really hear me? Good morning once again.
Good morning. I can hear you loud and clear now.
Oh, okay. We'll come back to Uniland, which is your constituency, because we know that the price increase also affects Uniland as a school. But let's talk about Unity schools first. There is this argument about the need to increase the welfare. You heard Idahosa talk there that if the money is put into good use and students are well fed and well catered for, perhaps the increase is justified. But then there comes the argument between the need to feed the children well and improve their welfare and affordability on the one side. Knowing that we live in a country where minimum wage is still 30,000 naira, how does the government strike a balance between improving the welfare of students and making life a bit, maybe not uncomfortable for those who will pay the money, who are their parents? It's a delicate balance. You would agree with me?
If I am going to answer your question, first thing I would like to say here is this. One, we all know what is happening in the country and people are seriously pressed. But, you know, we need to face reality in this country. My two daughters actually went to Queen's College, which is a Unity school. I remember in 2015 when my first daughter got admitted, there was a culture in Queen's College then that, you know, as a first-year student, you have to pay 50,000 naira. And the PTA in Queen's College then were using the 50,000 naira to employ more teachers as well as more staffs where it is needed. For instance, in the kitchen and all those things. And it is those 50,000 naira collected from the year one students that they use to run and pay the salaries of all those, they call them PTA staff. They use that money to run it successfully for the year. But when President Buhari became president and the Minister of Education came in and said that all Unity schools should be paying just 5,000 naira PTA per term. And, you know, some parents came and, you know, they cancelled that idea. So the PTA could not sustain the salary of the workers they were employing there. They had to lay them off. And the effect was that, I remember there was a day they ate breakfast and by 9 in the night, they've not eaten any other meal. So you can see the effect. And now let's come back to the question you asked. The question you asked is this. See, all money that is being paid, because I work with the budget preparation, so I know how IPPS operate. I know how single treasury accounts with the government operates. Every money paid into any government, federal government institution belongs to that institution. The only thing is before you can spend it, there must be an approval. So if there is going to be increase in the school fees, and what I mean by school fees is increase in the total amount, because as to be factual, to be realistic, what we are still paying for education in the country is still very, very cheap. And government is still saying they are not collecting school fees. So what they are collecting are all other charges, which are mandatory. For instance, In Unity School, the children will have to eat. And we all know the cost of the feeding now is so expensive. So how do you want them to? That money they are still collecting cannot cater for if government is not subsidizing. So the truth is this, with the amount they are charging now, it will make life far better for the students than what they are passing through.
Okay, so now let's come to your constituency, like I described it, University of Lagos. Now, I have a list of some of the charges for returning students. So let's look at them. I know the argument for the increment in fees by schools is that it's in line with current economic realities. But registration for returning students is put at 15,000 naira. Identity card is put at 5,000 naira. What kind of identity cards are they going to be getting? Is it electronic ID cards, put at 5,000 naira, and then examinations, 15,000 naira? Are some of this overpriced? Some of these fees?
Well, we all know what the prices of things are in the market now. So once we are saying that thing is overpriced, I can show you the identity card that we use in Unilag. Maybe I should bring out my ID card. It's an electronic card. This is my ID card. And, you know, it is going to come with a what you call the robe and everything. And, you know, it is not just about the ID card alone. I'm sure the school would have, you know, look at it appropriately and see that, okay, you know, if we are talking about ATM cards in the bank these days, I think they you know, give it at the rate of 1,000 naira. So you'll be asking that why are we paying 5,000 naira? But I am sure it's not just about the cost of the card alone, you know, because once you get the card, that's the card you hold until you graduate, except you lose it.
Okay.
But you see,
okay.
Hello.
Continue.
Go
please,
ahead,
continue,
sir.
continue. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So, but when you look at all the fees we are looking at, is actually to make life better and, you know, to be able to run the university more appropriately. And I'm always telling people we need to face some facts in this country. We know things are hard now, but I believe that what the current government is doing is about the best that has ever happened to this country. And why is it so? You see, people are talking about education free. I don't know any country in the world that has a quarter of the population we have in Nigeria that is running university education free. You can educate me on that, because I am a population economist and I know all the countries in the world. There is no country in the world that has a population of 50 million that they are running university education free. Because what we are still running now, if you look at the school fees we are paying, you know, you can sample around countries around us. Go to Ghana, go to Benin Republic, go to Cameroon, and see whether the school fees they are charging, even with these new school fees, is anything compared with what they are charging. And we all know the population of Ghana. Ghana at least is about the largest around us, and their population is still around 30 million. If Nigeria of over 200 million is running, we all know the federal universities that we have in this country. If it's not more than 60 federal universities now, how do you want government to what you call, to be able to be running those things successfully? It is we lecturers that will be paying with our blood, you know, to give free education in the university. And I asked, when we are going on national strike last year, I said, see, we need to sit down and understand one thing. If our mission in this country is to give free university education, fine, so be it. Then definitely, even in Freetown, there is nothing free. So what is free to some is because some people are paying for it. Part of the people paying for the free education in the university is we, the lecturers. We are paying with our blood. And I told us to them, see, if we know we want to be running free education, fine. You cannot be asking for an increase in salary. Where will it come from? Even if they increase your salary by 5,000 naira, do you know how much that will be to the increase in the wages? So you see, if you want to increase, then please don't tell government should not increase school fees. It is no. You cannot eat your cake and have it. So if you know
I like that point.
Salary,
Dr. John, I like that point. Permit me to just cut in there. You spoke from a point of understanding that I don't get to see or hear from other lecturers. because we have other lecturers who should understand what you understand seemingly, and they have students also in your school and some other schools, and they have joined the complaint wagon. Okay, they are complaining as well. Is this a matter of training for you because you are a trained economist, or why are you showing understanding for what the government is trying to do while your peers are not?
Well, the truth is this, you know, human being by our nature, we are selfish. But anybody that put the nation first, we all my 3 children are in Unilag. In fact, my last one will be entering now, which will pay year 1 school fees. My second child is going to year 2 to Idera by the medical school, which is going to pay high school fees. So by the time I put all the 3 school fees together, I'll be running to a 1 million. I know how much my take home is, but I need to put my nation first as an economist and somebody that has the interest of his country at heart. So that's just what I'm doing. I am not selfish. I know that I have the problem of how I'm going to pay the school fees. But if I want to look at that, I won't be saying what I'm saying. So that's, you know, the point of view from where others are talking from selfish point of view. But instead of looking at, you know, the country and like, what is better for the country? So that's the issue.
Let's look at impact on enrollment. Don't you worry that increased fees will reduce the number of students enrolling in Unity schools?
Definitely it is going to impact the number of students, you know, because like what you are saying now, even in Unilag, I've seen there are some students that even that 15,000 naira was even too much when we were paying 15,000 naira. So if you're asking those ones now to come and pay, you know, 120,000 naira, I don't know how they are going to survive. So likewise in the Unity school, you know, definitely it's going to. But that is where, you know, some measures need to be put in place to actually cater for those, you know, that would be, you know, left out. You know, it's a different thing for those that are just coming in. They know, you know, they have to look for to. But for those that are there and, you know, they can't. And I'm sure I remember when, you know, in Queen's College, I think there was one, what's it called, insurance policy they put in place. You know, they were collecting 5,000 or something like that, then, if I will remember well. That in case any parent died and the child now is now not able to afford the school fees, the insurance should be able to take over. And so we should start looking at things like that and put them in place so that if there are insurance, you know, we can genuinely see that, okay, these parents cannot afford the school fees, then the insurance should take over and, you know, pay the school fees of the child until the child can pay.
All right, Dr.
There are so many things that need to be put in place to cater for those that won't be able to afford that fees. Definitely,
okay.
There are some people.
Let me pause your comments there so I can ask Idahosa this question. In universities across the world, there are other sources of generating income because the schools have numbers. We have hundreds of thousands of students in any university per time, maybe not the private ones, even the private ones are doing well. And you see sachet water manufactured by a university, you see loaves of bread manufactured by the school. People are saying maybe the schools should look in that direction. Alternative, you know, sources of revenue generation, latching on to the numbers that they have as against passing the burden of welfare of the students to the students themselves.
Well, I think most schools are doing those investments. How profitable they are is another question, kettle of fish. You know, because sometimes you look at some of these businesses, you need to put so much money into them and see people have to run it. And sometimes it's also run aground. And then you are committing more capital and they're actually not getting the value. Again, the kind of resource, of course, the university system needs is huge. And I think what government is just trying to do is to say how we can actually balance, you see, what government is bringing in and what the system can generate itself so that we can take away that challenge the university system has experienced over the year of incessant strike actions and industrial disputes between the workers and the government who owns the university. So this is what it is. But when you take into account all the changes that are going on globally, it is only realistic for this to happen And you see, we are looking at it at just one side. Blessing the other time was asking, oh, will it not affect enrollment? In short, as a matter of fact, it will increase the drive and enrollment.
Really?
How
Yes,
will it do
because
this?
How?
the private schools are also hiking. Many people can't cope with the burden of private schools. If private school are charging 1 million and public school are charging 100,000, what do you think will happen? People will switch down, and when they realize, because the real motivation for many parents to go to private school is not because of quality, it's not because of the fact that they have best there, it's just because they are afraid that a child will start a school and they can be sure of the exact date that child will graduate. Now, if this increment is going to ensure stability within the system, that the child can enroll for a 4-year course and after 4 years can successfully graduate, there will be influx into the public schools. That's my own way of looking at it, because I also have children in public school, and I also have friends who have parents, children in the private schools. The real reason and the motivation is not because of quality of education they get in private school. The only issue is the fact that the strikes and industrial disputes in the public school will not allow their children to learn. And if this is resolved by this increment, a lot of influence will come in here.
Taking it from where you stop, if is conditional.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that the conditions will be in place to ensure that this increase is justified in terms of we see improvement in infrastructure, and we don't over time begin to see ASU calling for more funds and increase in salaries?
You see,
Talking about the tertiary institutions now.
we were just having a frank conversation with my friend before the studio time, and we're talking about our own children who have started to work and how difficult it is for them to even part with money because they know that the burden is on them. You see, what government has done is to say, well, we won't spoon feed you anymore. You have autonomy, fund your systems, your salary. So that has taken the burden to the school authorities. So they have to face the challenge of paying people well and ensuring there are no industrial disputes within the system. And then, of course, must also be creatively thinking of new ways, like Ayo has said, to see how they can generate funds internally to support the system, so that they who work in the system are well remunerated and the condition of service is determined by them and they are living well such that they can deliver public good. I think this is where we are, and I think it's a nice trajectory for the Nigerian educational system.
Okay, let's go back to Dr. Ajumo, who is still standing by on Zoom. Thank you for your patience. Yes, I know that the university system has its own governing council. You people are a government on your own, and yet another government is bringing in its own resolution to you. One would have expected that there will be a kind of handshake between one government and another government, which you constitute. Was there a point in time where, when you had a dialogue, when you sat at the table with the government, the higher government, I mean the federal government, with the governing council of your school, before you came to this point of, okay, let us increase school fees, or it was a unilateral decision by the federal government? Now, it's not a case of two governments disagreeing.
Well, we need to understand two things here. That as a lecturer, I'm not a member of the government council. But as well, I cannot say that I don't know what is happening, in the university system, and that is because I am well informed. You see, what people don't understand is this: the increase in the price that has happened now is not government unilaterally, forcing it on the school. It is what the school wants. But the truth is this: the school has been talking about autonomy, that they need more autonomy, and government is yielding to say, okay, the autonomy you want, have the autonomy. And you know what the ASU has been saying is, the ASU stand is government should not increase school fees. Fine. Up till today, school fees is due. So, but what about the charges? That's what they looked at. But when people want to talk, they will say school fees has been increased. School fees has not been increased. But when you look at that charges, you will see that school fees is new. It's the charge fee that has been increased. to actually, portray the reality. And when you look at university education, the main business of university is education. Every other thing, okay, start baking bread, start selling water. It's true, Unilag is doing that, but that is not the main business of a university. The main business is education. That is the commodity we are selling, and that's the commodity that's supposed to be bringing revenue, generating revenue for the university. So you see, when you look at that, you will see that all the charges that they are charging now is, and as I told you, every money that comes into Unilag belongs to Unilag. What government has only put in place is, okay, they want to see how that money is being spent. So before you can spend any money, there must be an approval. And what I mean by that approval is, yes, let's see, what do you want to spend the money on? How much? Because if you say you want to do something that costs 1 million and you are bringing a bill of 10 million, no. It will not, be approved. So that's all. It's not as if it's just to put check and balances. That okay, so but you are free to spend your money. It's just that you are not free to start, spending that money and siphoning it, in a dubious way. So if you will say you want to do something, let's say 1 million, you will still bring a bill of 1.2 million, it's still within the same range. But you can't say you want to do something of 1 million and go and bring 2 million, 10 million, and say, okay, it's our money you want to. There won't be approval. So that's what it meant by that approval. But the money is solely for the university. So now how to do it is to betterment, what's it called, the facilities, the infrastructure and all those things. And I was discussing with somebody yesterday. I said, see, the laptop I'm using that I'm using now, I bought it with my money 2015. That's 8 years ago. I'm supposed to have changed it. So even if the university is not going to increase my salary, but if they can buy all the materials, if you see the chair I'm sitting on, at my age, this is not the kind of chair I'm supposed to be sitting on. So those are the issues. The printer, it is my money I'm using to change the ink. It is my money I'm using to buy paper, to print result for students, to do whatever I want to do for students. The scanner in my office, it is my money I use in buying it. So if the school can take away all that, definitely my life will be better for it, even if you don't increase my salary.
Okay, quickly, on the final note, in 1 minute, can you talk to us about ensuring accountability? Just as there is advocacy for people to demand accountability from government, now from the Administrative Council of Universities, what measure is in place to ensure that students are able to see the transparency in terms of the judicious use of the increase in the charges? You want better improvement in the facilities that you use. So is there a mechanism to ensure that lecturers see that these monies are being used well? Students also see the transparency so that they're encouraged to continue paying the fees or the charges.
Are paying that money, and that's the fact. We cannot continue business as usual again, because the student will definitely demand for the worth of what they are paying. So if they don't see the worth, you will see. Even lecturers can't afford to behave the way they are behaving before. So these are all the orientations, that will take place. Because, they will tell you, we are paying, and we cannot see for what you are paying for. So all these things will change. Lecturers themselves will be oriented. As in, the manager will tell you that you have to manage the students well, because you have to deliver well. The students they will ask for accountability. That one is sure banker. They will ask for accountability. So it's not going to be business as usual again. You have to change the way you do things. Otherwise, there is going to be fracas.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Olusheye Ajuwon, who is an economics teacher and Unilag. Yes, all of us will have to change. There are global best practices in the education sector, just as it is in other sectors of human endeavor. And we do hope that we'll begin to do things right. If the parents agree, if they have any choice to disagree anyway, if they agree to pay these fees, we want to believe that the school authorities will use the money for the purposes for which it was collected in the first place. Thank you very much. We'll go on a very short break, and when we return, we'll go on to another topic of discourse for today. It's still part of the front burner issues today. Please don't go. go anywhere. Stay.
think that people of my age should not throw away the baby and the bathwater. Social media is not all bad. It's actually probably one of the most innovative communication means. I came to the realization to give this insight because a lot of my friends, people of my age, don't seem to be on any social media. They are not on Twitter, nor LinkedIn. And the best they will do is probably WhatsApp. And when you ask them, they say, oh, no, I don't do all those young people things. You people on your social media. However, I think that there's a real risk, that we may be missing out on some very critical, important thread of the communication by staying away from this innovative means of disseminating information. I know that sometimes it can be taken to very drastic levels that may not be healthy. For instance, the so-called NOMO, no missing out. So especially young people are always connected, getting the breaking news as it happens, new fashion, new styles. And it's difficult to do that and still concentrate on delivering a job, a task, especially if it's a complex task. But if you discount that and you want to use it reasonably, I think that people of my age should not throw away the baby and the bathwater. Social media is not all bad. It's actually probably one of the most innovative communication means. If you look at a lot of the marches that were called during the Arab Spring, they were organized with social media throughout the world. The recent march by almost 5 million people in London with regard to whether to have a Brexit or to revoke Article 50 or go for a second vote was organized through social media. One example I will give why we should not think that whatever the young people or millennials are doing is trivial is the example of a sales force that was typically high age, 50 and above, and there's these young people that joined that sales force, and they put them in the worst possible patch. They were actually selling baby food. And they put these people in a patch that 90% of the population were retirees and old people, knowing, of course, that they would not succeed. So they were very shocked that these millennials were consistently breaking their sales targets. And one day they swallowed their pride and asked them what the secret was. And the young fellows told them, well, there's so many old people in our patch, so what we do is that we push the baby food to them. Many of them don't have very strong teeth, so they actually do enjoy eating the baby food and they order more. They wouldn't have known if they had not had these millennials and if they had not, in a way, tried to punish them by giving them that bad patch. In my view, sticking to your traditional habits of assimilating news through newspapers and radio and television only, is like listening to your cassette of your best music. You play it over and over again and you enjoy it, but if you don't listen to the radio or to other sources of streaming, you don't open your mind to new genres of music, new opportunities, new possibilities. So I believe that we should not unnecessarily write off some of the good things that we can benefit from being on social media.
Thanks for staying tuned. Thank you very much, Austin Okiri, for that dose of motivation. I hope you got yours and you're preparing well so that you can get the benefit of receiving such motivation. Now let's look at traffic congestion. Lagos is one of the most congested states in Nigeria. Traffic congestion is one of the major problems in Lagos State, with effect on the economy as well as the lives of people, because you find some persons stay on the road for hours trying to move from one part of the state to the other. Now, to ease the flow of traffic, certain roads were worked on, and one of them is the Eko-Akpabong Bridge, which was reopened after 15 months of closure for repair barely 2 weeks ago. But that bridge has been closed. It was closed on the 23rd of July. That's just 2 days ago. Now, the closure, according to Olukorede Kisha, the Federal Controller of Works in Lagos State, it will be on the inbound carriageway at the Alaka Kostain Igomu section of the bridge. I mentioned that this is coming barely 2 weeks after the bridge was reopened, and here on Sick News we brought to you the report of how joyous Lagosians were because of the reopening of the Eko-Akpabong Bridge, because they could now find easy passage to their destinations, those who connect via that bridge. Now, they say the closure of the bridge was a response to the damage noticed on some of the bridge members, which needed to be worked upon. But I recall that this bridge was closed 15 months for work to be done on it, and yet we see that it's been closed again, and it's going to be closed for another 40 days for some members of the bridge to be worked on. How come that part wasn't spotted in 15 months?
I guess we were just too happy during the reopening for us to take note of what was said by the Ministry of Transportation. It was said that yes, there will be intermittent closure of certain parts of the stretch of road, of the bridge, to allow for finishing touches here and there. We know that a lot went down in the last 15 months since it was closed. So this is just it's not a new thing. It is to be expected. But people are like, okay, you have shut it down for 15 months. They just got carried away. They said they would shut it down intermittently to ensure that we complete the repairs. Because if the repairs are not fully completed, trust me, we'll go back to square one. That's on one side. And when you look at traffic congestion in Lagos, I have a short a joke. It was a joke, really. A 7-year-old child was asked, which is the longest distance you have ever traveled? A, Lagos to Abuja. B, Lagos to Benin. C, Baja bus stop to Mowe in Ebafo. And the answer was Baja to Mowe.
I know the answer.
The boy spends an average of 7 hours, 8 hours on a road, on a distance that should not, take him more than 10 minutes, 5 minutes max. Which is your longest route? Baja to Mowe.
Baja to Mowe is certainly the longest route. Okay. The most expensive route.
The most expensive, the longest road travel, the most stressful road travel. Okay, let's just say this. We have standing by on Zoom the Permanent Secretary, Lagos State Ministry of Transportation, Engineer Abdul Hafiz Toriola. Engineer Abdul Hafiz Toriola, if you are there, you can hear me. Could you please give us your good morning, your open lines? Okay, it's not there. Yes. Okay, so let's go on. It's becoming, like they say, unbecoming. Mm-hmm. If that tautology is allowed on a show like this. We all know the factors that cause congestion. People in my village will say, if not Lagos, where else do you live? Rapid urbanization, influx of more people who believe there are opportunities, and there are opportunities in Lagos, and everybody wants to latch onto these opportunities. So we have more people flocking Lagos. Yes, we're not having new roads being built, or we're not having all the expansions that are meant to be done. Okay, I have it on good authority that we have Engineer Abdul Hafiz Toriola, who is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation, Lagos State. Engineer, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Okay, thank you. Good to have you here. We're discussing congestion in Lagos. I mean,
It's my
traffic
pleasure.
congestion. And we're lashing on to, we're benchmarking that against two different roads. We have the Akpongbo bridge that was shut down for 15 months. They opened 2 weeks ago, and a section is also closed, a section of the Eco Bridge. And we have the Lagos-Ibadan Express, which we all know has been under perpetual reconstruction and repairs, which we hope very soon we will be able to breathe a sigh of relief. Now, let's look at Lagos State in particular. How bad is the traffic situation in Lagos? We know the answers, but let's hear from you. You are the authority here. How bad is the situation in Lagos?
Thank you very much, the anchor of this program. I think I want to start from the little girl comment about the distance from Mowe to Lagos. That tells you the volume of vehicles on our road, I mean, density of vehicles on our road, which Lagos State has been doing a lot to ensure that we remove or minimize the conflict points in the Lagos. The road construction is something that is necessary due to the number of users on the road, and you need to expand the road and also fix the road. But generally, traffic in Lagos, you have to look at the volume of the population of Lagos, despite that Lagos State is the smallest state in Nigeria. But when you look at the volume of vehicle, I think Lagos State takes care of about 35% of total vehicles in Nigeria. That tells you the volume, despite the land space of Lagos. And when you talk about population too, you see, when you talk about urbanization, talk about motorization, people need to move. So we have to make sure all these factors is being looked into, and you continue to plan, because you have to be proactive. According to the United Nations statement, the United Nations stated that by 2050, 2/3 of the population will move to urban city. And that is what we are seeing. And you know what happened in other parts of the country, like Nigeria. A lot of people are moving to Lagos. We receive an average of 89 people per hour every day that comes to Lagos. They don't leave again. And they have to move. So we continue to move, continue to plan, continue to strategize to ensure that we accommodate all these urbanization in Lagos. So basically, Lagos State is working to ensure that we don't even think of only road transportation. We are looking at the rail, we are looking at the inland waterways to ensure that we relieve of these congestions throughout the state.
Alternative routes ensures that major roads are decongested and ensures a traffic disperser. Are we exploring that enough in Lagos State, the use of alternative routes?
Yes. You can see that late last year or early this year, the former president of this country came to commission the Blue Rail, that is from CMS or Marina to Mile 2. That's the first phase. And second phase will start very soon from Mile 2 to Kukumaiko. By August, by next month, by the grace of God, they will start operation after doing the needful in terms of safety, looking at the logistic and other operational procedure they need to put in place, which they are working. And at the same time, you know that we are working with the NRC, Nigerian Railway Corporation, to share the same corridor from, we call it Ohigo, up to Alagbadu. I don't know whether you know that corridor. We call it a red line. So we are also working, and the job is about close to about 85-86%, which there's another time that you don't need to go through the road from Alagbadu down to up to Ohigo, and from there you connect to Lagos Island, or you connect to VI. As an alternative, I can tell you, we have increased our waterway in terms of our jetties and number of routes on our waterways. And people who live in Ikorodu, who live in Mile 2, who live in even up to Badagry or Jo, they can connect to Lagos through our waterways. We are building a lot of jetties, and we are even acquiring more boats for our own operator, and we are also encouraging the private operators on waterways. So we are doing a lot, but the population keep on increasing every day. And what do? To continue to plan in line with United Nations sustainable urban mobility to reduce the traffic. Even our environment too is very key. You know, when you look at any intervention, you look at the social, you look at the environmental, you look at the economic too at the same time. Those are the key factors we are looking before we bring in any intervention. And it's very key for us to know this.
All right. Yes. We know that road reconstruction or road rehabilitation, as the case may be, is capital intensive. And we also read about trunk A roads, trunk B roads, trunk C roads, which would suggest that certain roads are within certain people's jurisdiction, if I can borrow that legal balance, to repair. There have been cases in the past when even communities would want to work on a particular road. They say, no, you can't without the authorization of a particular government, whether it falls on trunk C or trunk B. Could you please educate us? Is the government making provision for private participation in road reconstruction? Otherwise, why would people be banned from, fixing a particular road because they don't have the approval for it? Please educate us.
Thank you. We encourage private sector to come in and also contribute their own quota to the development of the state. But at the same time, there is a procedure, and we also have standard. We also have standard which they must follow. You cannot just say you want to contribute without knowing the procedure, without knowing the specification for that road construction. They need to know. We encourage them at the same time, but we must talk, we must discuss so that we can give them expectation on the type of work they need to do on particular road. We have different terrain. We have the swampy area, we have a good land area that some are waterlogged areas. So we need to look at it after doing a study of the land. We will now give them the specification. So government encourage private sector. We have a lot of private sector who have been, coming in to also play their role in the state. But we need to sit down with them, tell them the terrain, because they don't know the terrain. What I mean by the land geometric, we need to tell them and also give them education. They are welcome anytime. We have been doing that a lot in Victoria Island, Lekki, Aja, and other parts of the state. So it is very key that they sit down with us and we encourage them. The government cannot do everything, I must say it. We need intervention of private sector to also come in and assist. It's for all of us. It's for the use of all of us, which I think the Lagos State government will welcome the private sector to come in and support the state as a whole.
Okay, let's begin from one of the roads you just mentioned, the Lekki-Ajah road. Now the construction of that road has been on for quite some time. What brings us to the time it takes for construction and rehabilitation of roads. That we've also seen in the rehabilitation of the Eko-Akpogbon Bridge. After 15 months, the bridge has been reclosed now for another 40 days. So what measures are in place to ensure that rehabilitations of road are done quickly to ensure that people get the relief of being able to use these roads on time?
Thank you very much. Well, I think we should start from Lekki-Ajah. A lot of construction is going on that corridor, which I need to tell listeners or viewers at home. We are having a regional, apart from general, we are trying to expand the road from even we can start from Akodo down to the Ajah. Through Bogije, Lakwe, Abraham Adesoya up to Ajah. We are trying to do a concrete pavement because of the type of vehicles that apply that road. We have most of that area. That place is another development areas in the state. We have a lot of estates, a lot of industrial area coming up, coupled with the Lekki Deep Sea free trade zone, Dangote refineries, Dangote fertilizer, a lot of things going on in that particular corridor. So we need to ensure that the road can withstand the load that apply that road, which is very key. And when we are doing any road construction, we normally give a traffic advice for people to know how to navigate. But I must tell you that the Akpogbon road or Eko Bridge, just a section of the road was closed down for maintenance. It's not the whole road that was closed. And before we announced that, before we announced the repair work to be carried out on that road, we gave a traffic advice on how people can navigate. How people can move within that particular area. It's just a section, but you can link from Alaka. You can go through the Costain to link back to Eko Bridge. those people who are going towards the Igom that government need to fix. And these some of the problem we are having, most of them are woman made. Because you see a lot of truckers and tankers parking on the road. You cannot park on the road, park on the bridge. So we are also working with them to introduce a system call-up system to put them at the satellite park or frigate, where they can now use the technology to move them to wherever they are going, to the tank farm. We have a lot of tank farm on that particular corridor. People want to get supply for PMS or AGM, let me put it that way. And people who are going to the port. So we are doing a lot of things to reduce the traffic on that particular axis, and to also ensure that we maintain and reduce the abuse of the roads, because a lot of people who need to put in place a parking facility, they have turned our road into their own parking facility. The road is meant for movement of vehicles, not to now use that as parking lot for their own business. So a lot of things is going out, a lot of things is going on, and we are dialoguing with all these operators on that particular area to ensure that they create their own parking. If you cannot pay, okay, we have created a parking for you. Go there, log on with our system for you to move. So it is very key that we know that we also put a lot of things in place. We give a traffic advice before we close any road for people to know how to navigate.
All right.
Thank you.
Let me give it to the government that the government always gives traffic advice. But for every traffic advice you give to people, people have procedural advice to you too as government. And one of which is, why don't you repair roads at night? Because you see people on the road, you see your men on the road doing road repairs in broad daylight. Yes, maybe for security concerns, the night might be an issue. But we are saying, is it not possible to work it out such that you take advantage of that period of time when most Lagosians are actually sleeping at home, so we wake up in the day and we have some respite? Would you take that kind of procedural advice from the masses?
Thank you very much. I think it depends on the type of the environment you find ourselves, how you find yourself when you want to repair. You also have to consider the complaints, and the consultant who's going to take over the road for repair. We look at, like I said, we look at the environment, right? Critical before you now say you're going to carry out this job during the day or at night. There's some road that we are doing at night. It depends on the area. So even we get a feedback from people. Feedback is very, very good for you to know whether you are doing very well or not, to be able to adjust your schedule of work to be carried out. So it's very critical that you take advice. But at the same time, we know the reason why we cannot do some road at night. A lot of logistic comes in. But at the same time, we also ensure that even while we are doing the road, we make alternative for people. At times, you don't even close the whole road. All you need, you do it in section. I call it section. Take one section, you open the other one. When you finish that one, you move back. So it depends on the road. But we are not going to close the road. We are not going to shut down the country as a whole or the state as a whole when you come to state level. But at the same time, people must know that we have reason for doing all these things during daytime or at night.
Okay, quickly, let's talk about the use of waterways. Some persons have phobia for water transportation. How safe is the waterways in Lagos?
I think we must give it to Mr. Governor. I must say that, because when he came in, he tried to look at the waterway corridors and the different routes we have. I know a lot of people have phobia for water, but I can tell you we have a lot of safety measures put in place by the government. Apart from the safety jacket, we have also used technology to also monitor our waterways. Same time, we have lots of technology put in place to monitor the waterway. Apart from that, we have rescue boats that we use. Apart from that, I think we also introduced a lot of what I would call safety instruments on our waterways. So you see, even we are removing the wreck. The wreck is something that people should know that can cause carnage on the waterways. So the wreck is also very important. We are working with the federal NIWA, Federal Inland Waterways. So we are working with them to ensure that all these wrecks are removed. And Lagos State government is able to remove some of these wrecks too at the same time. Also, I think our dredging is also very critical. Canalization of the waterways is also very critical for you to have easy movement on the waterways. A lot of states, you don't need to be afraid. There are waterways safe, and we have an agency, a Lagos State Waterways Authority, called them LASWA. They also monitor the waterways. But some of these operators, they want to operate at night. You cannot compare daytime light to night operation. So we have not, we don't have, all over the world, you put time restriction for your operation on waterways, except you are high capacity boat or vessels that they have their own lighting system that you think you are in the daytime. So for the inland waterways, we have told operator after 6 or 6:30, when the visibility is not that bright enough, what you need to do, you don't operate. But you see some people operating. So these are the minimal. I mean, these are some of the causes of the accident on the waterways, and I can tell you a lot. We have done a lot to reduce that. This year, I don't think we have had major crisis on the for our waterways. We are putting a lot of things in place, and Lagos State government. I think I must say it. The first pillar of this administration is traffic management and transportation. That tells you the priority the government has given to this particular sector, transportation, which included the waterways, the rail, the land, and a lot of things. So Lagos State government is sure that waterways is safer.
Let me just cut in there. She probably had me in mind when she was talking about some people having phobia for water. My friendship with water is from a distance, from on top of the bridge.
I think it's quite assuring to know that water transportation in Lagos is quite safe.
He said, I just wave at the water from Terminal Bridge and say, how are you? How are you doing? Okay, that aside, let's look at the role that street hawkers play in creating this congestion. We know that it is outlawed. Street trading is outlawed in Lagos. We had that show, that talk here on this show, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks ago. Then we got a message from France that says that, no, in France, there is still street trading. But there are designated areas of the street where they can trade. Now, you spoke earlier to the master plan, to planning ahead for what can come or what is to come in terms of population inflow. Would you say, is it possible for us to start factoring in the fact that, okay, people still need to eat and trade? Can we, in the master plan, if there is anything like that, I mean transportation master plan, can we make provision for street traders? Because if it is outlawed here and it is still done elsewhere, I think we should look in that direction. Is it possible we have a provision where a particular segment of a facility is earmarked for these kind of traders?
Thank you. You have mentioned one critical document, which is transport policy plan, which is critical, which we have factored a lot of citizens into the plan, even the street trader. But you cannot come on the major road at the median and start trading. At every terminus, we have made provision for street for those who want to trade at the bus stop, major terminals. Even the bus stop that we have done in time of multiple lay-by bus stop, where even we need provision for them. But we cannot come to the middle of the road. That's what is happening. Last man has been empowered with Kai to ensure that they remove all these traders on the road. You see, they also affect traffic movement, flow of traffic on the road. See a lot of people trying to, and the law even says that if you buy anything on the road, you are liable. I think I must say this, you are liable. Because by the time you stop, you are infringing the flow of traffic. I think we must say this. So if you want to trade or you want to buy, it's a two-way thing. There must be offer and offering. You must go to the designated terminals or bus stop to buy, not to come to the middle of the road. By the time you are buying, you are obstructing, you are disturbing the flow of traffic. We need to know that the average vehicle per kilometer in Lagos is over 242, which is the average standard is 19 vehicle per kilometer. That tells you the volume on our road. So adding small improvement on it can also lead to traffic on the road. So you see, we have made provision for them at major terminal, even when we have multiple lay-by. Like, let me give you an example at Yanoru. We have a multiple lay-by bus stop. At K2, we have multiple lay-by. We also made provision for kick lamps for people to trade, not to now come on the middle of the road. I think you must agree with me. Apart from the movement of the vehicle, it is also very risky. You have to consider the safety of both the buyers and the seller on the road. I think you must help us to do a little more advocacy on this, that people should stop buying or selling on the middle of the road. I think we must have seen all these people. It's not new to you. I see a lot of people trading on the road, which is very critical for us to know that we need to walk.
Before we let you go, let's look at road design to enable the use of cycles. In this time where the cost of petrol has increased, a lot of persons have turned to the use of bicycles. So how can we come to a road design that enables the safe use of cycles and even more pedestrian movements on the roads?
Thank you. You develop city for people, not for vehicles. I think I need to say this. You develop city for people, not for vehicles. And who are these people? People who walk, who use bicycle, who do, sort of things on the road. So when you talk about transport planning, you consider what you call non-motorized transport. That people who want to walk, you make part of the road available for them. For those people who want to walk, who want to use bicycle, you also consider them. So we have factors into our master plan, which most of the new design road in Lagos State has provision for pedestrians who want to walk, also for who want to use their bicycle to move. And I can tell you, when it comes to earth matter, it is better you walk. When it comes to earth matter, it's better you use the bicycle to also move around. Even in the time of when you are having when subsidies have been removed, a lot of people are now resorting to bicycle. And I can tell you, in a country like Northern Ireland, they have more bicycle than the population. And when you look at their environment, the environment is cleaner, it's better. When you take picture there, you think, are you in heaven? So we encourage people who want to use bicycle to move from one point to another, and people who want to walk. It is very good for our environment, very good for our earth, and also a lot of things. We reduce pollution at the same time. So in our design now, we have made provision for both who want to walk, pedestrian, who want to use bicycle. We call it non-motorized transportation.
Thank you very much, sir. We actually know of non-motorized delivery companies who are using bicycles exclusively to, distribute goods, even in Lagos State. Okay, we want to say a very big thank you to Engineer Abdulafiz Toriola, who is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation, Lagos State. That was an educative session there. So we go on a very short break now, and when we return, we'll be looking at social media and its impact on mental health. And did you just say that's huge? Yes, it is huge. How huge is it? We'll find out when we come back from this break. Don't go anywhere.
Mental health refers to a person's overall psychological and emotional well-being. It encompasses how individuals think, feel, and behave, as well as their ability to cope with life's challenges and stressors. Mental health is a vital aspect of overall health, and it influences how individuals perceive themselves, relationship with others, and their ability to function in daily life. Today, we are looking at the impact of social media on our mental health. What are the experiences so far? Let's find out. A person with good mental health can effectively handle stress, maintain positive relationships, be in charge of the mind, and adapt to changes and difficulties. On the other hand, poor mental health can lead to various mental health disorders, impacting a person's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors negatively. Social media usage has become an integral part of modern life, enabling communication, information sharing, and entertainment. While it offers positive impacts like connectivity, social support, and creative expression. Concerns arise about its effect on mental health. Many have reacted, sharing their opinion concerning the place of social media in today's world.
Social media has done more harm than good. In my own, for instance, as a student, you are not supposed to be on the social media, or on the social media, take for instance, from morning till, let's say, till night, whereas you have not glanced through your notes, your books, where your destiny lies.
Excessive use of social media can lead to anxiety, depression, cyberbullying, sleep disturbance, and privacy issues. Promoting digital well-being, offering mental health support, fostering media literacy, and implementing measures that prevent cyberbullying are essential, as it has largely impacted on the mental health of many users.
Going to the gym, it sounds very, very vain sometimes when you tell people to go to the gym, but it's not really much about that. When it comes to mental health, there's a lot of endorphins that are released when you go to the gym. You get to feel good, you feel a lot better.
I think at some point you need to give a break when it comes to social media. You shouldn't be there all the time, like meditate, you can read books, you can do other things. There are so many other things to do apart from social media.
Try and reduce its use. So like someone using Facebook or using other social app like Twitter, if it's getting a negative feedback from the app, you should limit the way you use it. Facebook, minimize the way you go through Facebook, so that you won't see things that can affect your mental health.
To ensure responsible and constructive social media usage, individuals and platforms should strike a balance and take proactive steps in order to harness the benefits of social media while safeguarding their mental well-being and privacy in the digital age.
Social media has changed the way I communicate with people, because I'm a reserved person by nature. So I tend to I'll be able to text someone certain things like on social media or via text than in reality.
Policymakers are advised to play a vital role in creating regulations that protect user privacy and combat cyberbullying, negative influencing, ensuring that social media remains a tool for connectivity and positive engagement without compromising mental health. Grace Komolafe, Souk News.
Thank you very much, Grace, for that report, giving us insight into how social media use can impact our mental health. Now, to look further into this, we have a social worker joining us via Zoom, Oluwatobiloba Bello, who is a licensed social worker with expertise in applying theories to real-world situation in the field of social sciences. Hello, are you there? Good morning. All right, before we get joined by Oluwatobiloba, who's a social worker. Now, social media is something that is very good, but you know that everything that has advantage surely must have disadvantages. And we have more young people using social media these days. They spend more time on social media because some of them use it too as a tool, an educational tool for assignments and for just getting informed about what's happening around the globe. Teens, a report has it that about 69 to 80% of teens admit that they make use of social media on a daily hour. What are your thoughts on that?
When you look at the statistic that says that about 60 million Nigerians have mental health issues, And there are other statistics that link social media to it. I am not saying social media is the sole cause of these mental health issues or challenges in Nigeria, but it plays a very, very key role. And today we're looking at how social media, like you said earlier, impacts on mental health of an average Nigerian or an average youth elsewhere. And we have with us on Zoom Oluwatobi Loba Bello, who is a licensed social worker. So let's ensure that you can hear and see us clearly. Tobi Loba Bello, good morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes, there are arguments for and against the use of social media, the excessive use of social media. Let me be very clear about that. We in some clients they talk about diminishing cognitive bandwidth that you have per day. And some talk about there is attention residue that you leave for every social media site that you visit. Those ones sound like big English. To me and probably to some other people, okay? You are the expert here, the social worker here. Can you please make a connect between social media and mental health? And let's start the conversation from there. Start there.
Okay. So, like you rightly said in your introduction, social media is here to stay. You know, it has become an integral part of our life where we get to learn, where we get to communicate with others and interact with people. And has also broken the distance, the barrier in communication across different continents. You know, you're able to take classes while you're here. So social media, the internet, technology, and all of the things that make social media available and accessible to us is here to stay. And we cannot dispute that. However, it is because it is now a form and a part of our lives. It also influences and informs almost every aspect of our life. And one of them is mental health. Now, when you're talking about mental health issues, you're looking at addictions, you're looking at mental illnesses that were transferred through genes, you know. However, with the advent of social media, you have what is called social media addiction now, you know. It diminishes self-esteem in the case of some persons. There are a lot of harassment going on, so anxiety goes up, depression goes up. You have people having the fear of missing out. You know, some people are sleep deprived. Some people are looking for validation and all of that online. Now, this has definitely increased mental illnesses and mental health cases that we've had. Okay, so typical example, you have someone who has posted something on Instagram, and they keep going back every minute to check how many people have liked, how many people have made comments, how many people have shared their content and posts. If social media wasn't there, you know, when we were writing letters, nobody was looking at, oh, how many people saw my letters? How many people got my letters? So yes, you know, we have social media with us. However, it has influenced our several lives. So anything that, for everything we've had before the advent of social media has expatiated and exaggerated it for us. And that includes mental health, you know, how well we take care of our mental health, the things that we absorb in, how we process things, information, and put them out there.
All right. I like the radiance that you exude. Hello, Tobiloba, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I guess already that you're very happy. Now, in search of happiness, people get into one platform or the other, so they spend more time on social media. Now, reports have said that too much use of social media could actually lead to more online interaction, but it's leading to a physical disconnect. Now, how does that translate into loneliness of the person, and how can we curb this?
Okay, for human beings, we are wired to want to interact and relate with others. Okay, and this also increased physical interaction, connectedness. And that was one of the things we saw during COVID, where everybody had to stay back home. Yes, you had a lot of technologies to interact with one another. However, you could see individuals craving for that human connection, seeing another individual. So you can be in your room and you're talking to everybody in the world. You could be putting out posts there. However, you're still lonely because that human connection, one-on-one interaction is not there. So yes, loneliness is heightened, even though you are reaching out to people. Now, this happens because you are interacting with people that you do not connect with, you do not have an interaction with. Yes, you're interacting virtually. However, your adrenaline is not pumping when you're seeing. The adrenaline is supposed to have the connectedness you're supposed to have when you see someone, you hold someone, you hug someone, eye contact. Those things are really important. And you're not having them even if you're talking virtually, because yes, sometimes you're in a virtual space and it really feels like you're together. Okay. But that's not usually for long. If being staying virtually and connecting online was really okay, we're not going to be having the AI realities that we're having that want you seeing someone stand in front of you. Okay, so yes, this contributes to loneliness because, like I said earlier on, the human connections, we're not having them, the bodily contacts, we're not having them. So you could have somebody in the room and this person is lonely. Now, how do we cope this? We need to consciously start taking off time from social media. Okay, you need to recognize that all of your life cannot revolve around social media. Otherwise, it would have just been created like that from the onset without having human interaction. Okay, so we should appreciate and welcome development. We should appreciate and welcome social media and the internet and the progress we are having with connecting. However, we should not solely depend on that because as human beings, we still need those contacts with one another to function. So simple tips on how to copy, like I said earlier on, you need to probably go on the phone fast. Yes, I know some persons are working virtually and they only have to get to interact virtually. So take some time off, walk around, breathe in fresh air, interact with nature, interact with human beings, see human beings, go around, see your neighbors, say hello to them, go to religious houses, and even if you make friends virtually, create time to see them
Okay.
physically and not just hang on the virtual interactions that you have.
All right. Olatobidawa, let's look at it this way. We know that what people look like on social media may not be what they are in real life. We talk about intentionality of branding on social media. Unfortunately, some people take everything on social media to be the way it is. They fail to realize that what you see may not be what you get. They are only seeing curated and idealized lifestyle on social media. And this begins to make them feel like they are a bit unfortunate in life. How do we make a connect between curated and idealized social media lives and low self-esteem in young people who are not savvy to understand the difference between what they see online and what they will get when they come in physical contact with their so-called idol?
It's quite unfortunate that is the reality. And like you said, it's personal branding. Okay. For instance, I know I'm coming up on this show. I would have to, the word package myself well. And because of the values that the society has embraced in appreciating and glamorizing this packaged presentation on Instagram and the other social media platforms, the young people are not realizing that there's a difference in what you see online and what you see as a person. And young people are at the stage in their life where they're having models, they're having role models, they're having idols, like you said, they're looking up to people, and they just want to have this pitch perfect experience, when you see them online. And that's why you have people say, oh, that person is even rude, the person is not friendly. That's because this person online has packaged the content, they've sat down, they've edited it, they've looked at it over and over again. So how do we help our young people to be able to differentiate between what is being shared online and real life situations? Like I said earlier on, they need to interact with more people physically. Let them get exposed to what is going on outside of social media. Let them interact with the environment in its real and raw form and not what has been packaged. Let them understand that there are unrealistic standards, especially when it comes to beauty standards out there online. Let them see real people. If all they are interacting with is people that are virtual 24/7, they wouldn't know otherwise. All they would know is, oh, this is supposed to be done this way. But they're not seeing real people interact. They're not seeing real people talk. They're not seeing real people fight. They're not seeing real people sort out issues, and all you're just seeing is structured content. So let them go out, let them interact with other people, let them see how relationships are formed, let them see the challenges that people face, let them see diverse sets of people and not just focus on what you just have online. Okay, so and this also comes down to how we train our children, the kind of schools they go to. We know that schools are now using lots of internet, to be able to communicate and pass knowledge to the students. However, let the children also have time to play. Let them see how a gardener looks like in real life. Let them see how a security officer looks like. Now, seeing them on the road when they're going to school is not saying. Let them observe. I remember growing up, we would always have excursions to some facilities and workplaces, and you see people doing their work in real time. Okay, not just that they recorded a part of their processes and they posted it online, and you are taking them through that to say that that's being part of exposure and observing. No. So let them interact with real people. Let them see real life situations and begin to appreciate that there's a difference between selective information that's posted online and the real life realities that we have.
The report has that excessive use of social media could lead to attention deficit and also reduce cognitive abilities. A person is already exhibiting that. How can it be corrected?
How can it be corrected? Be exposed to better alternatives. Now, why you want to look at why is it that human beings are how we are having short attention now? There are lots of content out there. I remember when skits started, you had skits progressing, and there was a time when you had skits for just 30 seconds, 1 minute. The moment your brain is wired and conditioned to just want to get all of the information you want to get in 1 minute, any information longer than 1 minute gets you bored, gets you tired. Okay, so we want to start exposing ourselves to content that are lengthier, such as reading books. We want to start cultivating habit to start reading books, reading articles. I remember growing up as a child, one of the few media platforms we had to get information was a newspaper. Okay, you would have to read. Rather than just, you don't read a paragraph, because the content, the juice of what you're reading will probably be eating a second to the last paragraph or even the last paragraph. So you want to follow through, and that would definitely cause you to pay attention to what you're reading. So we want to be able to start to cultivate the habits that we had before now. Social media didn't come for us to throw off all the things that we had before now. Rather, it was supposed to enhance our lives. Okay, so rather than say that because there's now easy access to information, there can still be books, just the way you have reading apps online. There can still be books for you to read, truly, for you to pay attention and read. Then secondly, our learning styles need to be taken into cognizance. Okay, there are 4 different learning styles. You have people that are audiovisual, you have those that are audio learners, you have those that are kinesthetic, and when we are teaching and people are getting information, you want to appeal to them, the form in which they learn best. This should be so, because it helps them feel more comfortable and they love it. So an example, you have a child who is audiovisual, you have an individual who is audiovisual, and all you want this person to be reading is text, whereas this person wants to see and they want to hear. So to be able to increase the attention span of this person, you probably want to get a video on a subject matter. They are seeing it and they're hearing it. It appeals to their senses, they are learning better, and that way their attention is more focused on what they have to learn. So because we've had too many information out there in short bits, it's probably going to take a while, to be able to develop and cultivate this habit again. So let's begin to take in content gradually, and let's begin to increase the level at which we are learning things, rather than just, go on TikTok, just 1 minute, go on Instagram, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and you think that's all, and you move on from there.
Okay, Oluwatobiloba, the fluency with which you talk makes me realize the fact that we need more like you. I mean, more social workers, not just on the screen like this, but maybe in our schools and in our colleges. Would I be too wrong to say you people are not visible enough where you are needed?
You'll be right and you'll be wrong. Okay. It wasn't up until last year that social work became a profession that was recognized by the federal government of Nigeria. It was signed into law. However, there are thousands and thousands of people who are trained as social workers in Nigeria. Okay, and social workers are in different fields of the nation. Let me put it that way. Wherever you see a human being, you will get to see a social worker. A social worker is expected to provide social services, to support this person, because the core of our work is to make individuals comfortable and, to be good for the society at large. Now, when you have people who are trained but are not finding places to work and get a reward for their passion, you see them moving to other clients and you see them moving to other fields. Okay, so There are social workers all around. However, the profession has to be more attractive to them when it comes to the reward for them to want to stay. Because you hear it in the news, social workers are well paid abroad. So you see people want to just get a social work degree and they want to move out. Okay. But we have social workers in Nigeria. We have social workers who are doing excellently well. And another thing is to not to multitask. You know, when you see a social worker who goes for a job opportunity in the school, let's take for instance, the school will probably be assuming, oh, you're a social worker, so you're going to teach as well. No. A social worker would not do their job maximally if they are teaching and you expect them to still practice as a social worker. Because social work practice is tedious, whether we like it or not. Because as social workers, we do not just work with the community at large or the family at large. In simple terms, this is what our job is. Let's take, for instance, Toby has a need. She has a problem and the social worker is involved. The social worker is not just looking at Toby as a person. The social worker is looking at Toby, looking at the immediate family, looking at how the extended family affects this individual, looks at how the neighborhood affects this individual, looks at how the community at large affects this individual. So you can see social workers going for a change in policy because a few individuals are affected by a particular policy. So it's just multi-level for us, and we have social workers, and everybody's doing the best and beats that they can per time.
Can you tell us more about certain mental disorder that people are likely to develop from excessive exposure to social media, and what are the tell signs associated with those mental disorders?
Thank you very much. The one that has really topped the list, in the past few years is anxiety. Anxiety, okay? You have people who are wanting to know, oh, I made a post, let me check, every minute you check in, how many people has liked this? Oh, just one person has liked since the last 1 minute. Oh, why is this person not like it? You're checking, analyzing to see what's going on your page. When somebody gives a comment or when you post something, you're already panicking, you don't know what somebody else is going to say about it. So anxiety tops the list. When you start having how your heart is palpitating, you're probably shaking visibly, you're probably scared of something you were not scared of before. Okay, anxiety. And you have depression as well. You have depression. And depression is just feeling sad. I need to put that out there. Depression is not just feeling sad. There are signs to depression and it has to be clinically diagnosed that the individual is depressed. Now, you would hear things like, oh, I don't feel like dancing and I used to like to dance. That doesn't mean you are depressed. You would need to not feel like dancing for a period of time and at a particular level and degree for you to be diagnosed. And the fact that you don't just feel like dancing is not the only thing that will be checked to diagnose that the person is depressed, okay? For people that are depressed, you see, they don't take care of themselves. They're no longer interested in the things that they used to be interested in. They're just so they're pitiful, and they don't see hopelessness is also one of the things that's, is part of depression. So depression, anxiety. For some persons, okay, that already have, they're predisposed to having certain mental illnesses, okay? It could be a trigger. Just the way substance use could be a trigger for certain mental illnesses, So coupled with other things such as anxiety, it could trigger an individual that was already predisposed to mental illness. So I would say on the top of the list, anxiety tops it for mental illnesses that could be triggered through excessive use of social media.
Thank you very much. I believe I also has another question for you.
Issues, okay?
Definitely.
Where, like we said earlier on, you get to see individuals that you think should look perfect and you are comparing yourself to them. That is also a problem.
Oluwatobi Loba, let's look at social media as a blade, for instance. A blade in the hands of a butcher is not the same as a blade in the hands of a surgeon. Social media, though a contributing factor to the growing social mental health disorder in our society, I like to believe that it can also serve a role in correcting mental health disorder. In what way can we use social media positively to, bring down the incidence of mental health disorder, even though it is one of the primary causes of this disorder? Is it possible?
Yes, very possible. Thank you very much for that question. It is popularly said that social media is not bad. The internet is not bad. However, it takes the shape of the user. I'll take that again. Social media is not bad. Social media is plain. Social media is not evil or good. it takes the shape of the user, of the handler. Those who are on the platform are the ones that determine and steer it, and it goes the way they want you steer it to go. Okay. Now we've talked about the negative impact of social media because it's individuals that are making those impacts, those negative impacts, using social media as a tool. It can also be used positively. One of the strong and most important and positive impacts of social media is it has created a safe online space. You know, we have empowering safe online spaces on social media. You have support groups that are holding virtually. Okay, you are having adverts and just nuggets, points in forms of reels, in form of posts, in form of stories that are helping and encouraging individuals. Okay, you have people post content, you have people post quotes, even songs that are playing over and over and over again. Even as simple as somebody, you know, there's a post online and somebody puts in a comment. Sometimes you see people say that, oh, thank you for sharing this word. This has lifted my spirits today. So social media is really powerful. So yes, we can use it to promote, you know, social and mental health events. We can use it to promote mental health practices. Okay, you have people coming online to give out their services as therapists, pro bono, even paid. Okay, you have websites that you can always go to. You have apps that you can use. I think there's an app called Calm that helps measure, you know, it gives you codes, there are songs, and little bit of exercises you can do here and there. So all these platforms are available for us to use. However, like I said earlier on, the handler determines how it goes. So yes, let's use social media for proper awareness and campaign. Let's use social media to support other people. And finally, we can also use social media to get those who need help. Okay, yes, social media might be the leading cause, you know, in this conversation as we've identified, to why people are having issues. However, it is also the platform to also be able to identify those who need help.
Like every form of addiction, it takes a lot of discipline and support to be able to break. Now, for someone who is addicted to the use of social media, what are the ways to gradually break this addiction?
Thank you so much for that question. Like you said, like for every addiction, an addiction wasn't formed in a day, and you don't expect it to go in a day. Okay, so you want to start looking at things like taking a phone fast. You want to take a fast where you are not, you know, all up in your phone 24/7. So an example is if you've been on your phone, if you are usually on your screen for 20, okay, don't let me say 20, let's say for about 18 hours a day, you want to review that. You want to have times where you are not using your phones. So an example, when I'm about to go to bed, I take about an hour or two before then, and my phone goes on airplane mode. I have to intentionally put my phone on airplane mode so that I'm not disturbed in my sleep, and so that I also get myself in proper, I put myself in a very good shape before sleep. So you want to have a digital detox. Okay, you want to take breaks from social media. You want to give yourself time. You want to ensure that you're not on social media for as long as you used to be. And this is just to encourage you. If you used to spend, let's say, 10 hours on your screen daily, and you find out that you're now spending 9 hours on your screen daily, please, that is a plus. That is progress. Okay, don't beat yourself up. Gradually build from there. You want to engage in online activities. This cannot be overemphasized. You want to engage in online activities. You want to meet with people. You want to relate to people. You want to do things with your hands, aside from clicking on pads and keyboards.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Oluwatobiloba. I wish we had more time with you because it's been a very enlightening conversation with you. Definitely. And that's the show today. Thank you for your time with us. We ask you to join us again tomorrow, 7 a.m. West African time. I am Blessing Aichi.
And my name is Ayo Jimmy. Let's learn all we have been taught today and become better individuals. When you use social media, make use of it like a surgeon uses a blade, not like a butcher uses a blade in a particular context. Because at the end of it all, the level of mental health of individuals determine how healthy our society is. I remain Ayo Jimmy. I'll see you tomorrow.